Hello and welcome to our vendor session from NICE. My name is Christian Heitkamp and I'm happy today to present you how to get your hands on Microsoft Teams telemetry data. I have prepared an exciting session for you today, so I hope all of you will learn something new. This session is pre-recorded, so in case you have questions, I'm online right at this time, so feel free to type a question for me into the chat. I'll try to get this answered or have one of my staff on the call help you as well with that. Great, so with that, let me do a short introduction of the sponsor of the session here today is the company NICE. NICE provides a number of solutions for System Center Operations Manager and Azure Monitor, which are all around monitoring various enterprise applications. So they have a number of office locations in the United States and in Europe and support a number of customers throughout the world. So what is important is like to have a short look at the portfolio before I actually get into the content of the session. So first, I'll talk about Microsoft 365. So Microsoft 365 consists of a number of services like SharePoint, Exchange Online, Teams, and others like OneDrive as well. So, the question typically comes on how do I measure the real end user experience? Or, for example, how to actually determine if all the features and functionalities of a SharePoint deployment, for example, are working. At the same time, I want to have reports, for example, or next to the reports, like to evaluate how many licenses I have to use in my tenant. But today, actually, we look at the fourth component in here, which is around Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams actually does produce a large number of telemetry and statistic data, which can be used for reporting, and also for performance management and as well for availability reporting. So NICE provides a solution, so feel free to get in touch with us or browse to www.nice.de/request or visit our website. With that, let's dive into the section of looking at Microsoft Teams telemetry data. Before I actually get to the data itself, let's have a look at the architecture. I prepared a slide here for you just to make sure that we have a common understanding like how Microsoft Teams architecture looks. So the various boxes are here, the purple boxes, for example, the dark blue boxes are for Microsoft Teams, like they have a web client, they have an iOS app or an Android app, or can use the Microsoft Graph API. So on the bottom line here, actually, we have various backend components like Microsoft Teams, or actually legacy components that reside from Skype Business Service, and then other shared common components like the Azure or the Office 365 components that are part of the ecosystem. So you can see here on the right side, like a little bit outside of the gray boxes, the actual telemetry data. So that actually shows that the telemetry data is collected across all different tenants and provided in one place. So, and then the question is like, how do I get access to this telemetry data, which we'll all answer in a moment. So when let's take an example. Like let's use the desktop client most of you using right now for Microsoft Teams and place a call. So you're calling your colleague, or you have a Teams call meeting with all the others. And at the time the call starts, all the data like jitter, performance data is being collected. And once the call terminates, is fed into the telemetry store. So one of these records we call team call record. So, and that's the term I actually want to put out first here. So what is a team call record? So the call record actually is a data set of all call metadata stored in Microsoft 365 telemetry store after each team call. So, and that is actually the set of data we want to have a look on today. So, how do we do that actually? So there are a couple of possibilities you can do that. So, and as well, why is that data actually interest? Like, well, there's telemetry data. Why should I actually care? So at the first point, actually, we look at what questions can we answer with the data? Because data doesn't make sense unless you can derive information from it. So actually, the Teams call record dataset can give you answer, for example, to questions like, which is the user with the lowest user experience? Like on this team call here we're having right now, who has actually the worst performance in terms of seeing the video, the screen share, or the audio quality. And we can also answer the question, and why actually? So another question that typically comes up is like if users call into the service desk and complain about outages or degraded performances, it's like, and the service desk actually has a hard time to troubleshoot that because there might be many different components involved. Like either, for example, it can be a problem at the user end, or it could be a problem at the service provider, or actually the Teams tenant itself. So there are different moving parts, and as we know, network is always going to be a challenge. So with that, actually, we can pinpoint here which part of the network are responsible for degraded performance. Another point is eventually we create teams, and teams are not used then. We all know we have created teams and they're laying around, but well, when did we log in the last time? So actually then we can actually have a look at this and say, well, there's a team that has not been used for a year or so, and then we can actually question if that still makes sense to have that laying around. If we go a bit deeper and analyze more on the network side, we can actually identify office locations with poor connectivity performance, for example, or on the last point here, check on which network do users experience the poorest team performance overall, and then look at the details again, why the performance actually of that specific team call is so poor. All right, so, well, that's all good questions, right? So how do we get the answers? With that, actually, we have two possibilities. So first, actually, and that's going to be quite deep dive, actually, but I still want to give you the opportunity, take some free code samples. We have provided a community Teams call record webhook. This is actually a piece of code you can download from our GitHub repository. I'm giving that right now into the chat, so feel free to grab it from the chat and clone the GitHub repository. And with that data, actually, you can actually load it into your Visual Studio and build that code sample, register that with the service principal in your Azure tenant, and then actually take the data from the call records out of that. So I'll walk through. Don't worry, I'll walk you through in a moment about that. So if you don't want to go that route, we have another possibility. I get a bit later. Two more details. Great. Okay, let's start with the hard stuff first now. Good. I put out this short architecture to explain a bit like how we're going to do this. So on the right side, there's your Microsoft 365 tenant with all the resources in there. That's what you have. So if you're taking part in this call today, you most probably, you're sure you can have this, you have your tenant you're signed on, either have your own tenant, or you have you're a guest on this tenant, or you actually you're global administrator of your company tenant, and you can own that and work with that. So there are a couple of ways, but in the end, this is the Microsoft 365 tenant that has the resources. Obviously, there's the Azure AD, and no matter if you have like subscriptions now to it, or if you just have your free Azure AD that comes with Microsoft 365, you have the ability to create a service principal. The service principal is a registration of an endpoint, an application endpoint or app registration that allows to handle all the security and access privileges from a client application to your resources in Microsoft 365. So that's the green box. On the left side, actually, is that what I provided earlier in the example, is the client application, which I will show in a moment. I will give you the live demo for. So the client application actually sits there and goes through an endpoint, a public endpoint, and reaches out to the service principal, registers the subscription. So that is subscribing to update from resources. So like, let's say, for example, you have a resource like a core resource or excuse me, a chat resource, and you're subscribing to that. And as soon as there's an update, like in this specific case, it would be like a new call record. And the new call record actually then is given to your client application. And your client application says, hello, there's a new call record, and you can go in and fetch all the details for that specific client record. As call record. So that's basically the demo we're going to run through. I give you a bit more details on the demo flow now, just that you understand what steps we're going to take. First is the preparation and run. So we'll actually do run that application. I prepared a bit because we just have half an hour, so that would kind of overflow this too much. So I will just do that step first. And then in the next part, we will evaluate the records and look at the call records, and then talk about the analysis of the call record in the last part. So that's basically the demo flow we're going to walk through. All right, perfect. Let's get started. So I've already opened my Azure portal. So if you go to your portal at azure.com, you can actually here on the left side find the application registrations. Here in that case, you would basically register a new application. I did this already beforehand. And then in the newer application registration, actually, you have the different credentials, including the application ID and directory ID. With these things are required on the client side. So let me open now the Visual Studio project. Okay, let's just open this. Okay, here. So after you downloaded the source code from GitHub, you actually can import it into your Visual Studio and open it and basically just build it. And once it's built, it actually completes and will bring up your Swagger API endpoint, so you can actually try it out. And in this case, like all the information will be kept in memory. So we'll basically, as I explained earlier, we'll have a subscription, which we now will register here. Let's go to the application registration. There you go. Oops, just takes a moment. Here you go. Just waiting until it's loaded. There we go. So here we already prepared some fields. So we have the, let's go to tryout here. And we have the tenant ID actually here. And the tenant ID is what I've just showed you comes from the, let's go back here. Well, it comes actually from the application registration. So I'll take it from here. Oops, bring it back in here. So the tenant ID will go in here. All right, for the resource, actually we're interested in call records. Just picking the call records. The resource URL. The resource URL is the connection to actually the URL where Teams accesses the endpoint. So and let me just quickly navigate, show you how to navigate to this. So you can just go to, obviously it's Microsoft, then go call record graph API. Oops. There you go. Just go here. Well, actually brings up like the Graph API documentation, and we have it right over here, how to access it. So I'll just pick this up here and bring it over to the in here. And now we need the application ID. Application ID can also be found in the application registration from early on. There we go. There we have to copy it from here, bring it in here. So, and the last item which we still require is actually the application secret. The application secret we'll need to generate, and I'll just give you a short information how to do that. So in the application you registered, you can go to the certificates and secrets, and we will just create a new client secret. You can just enter some description here and check how long it's valid for. And then we actually see the secret over here, the value of the secret. We'll actually also copy that one and bring it over to the API endpoint. All right, now let's execute and see if everything goes through. Okay, now it's registered with success. So we'll see actually the subscription has successfully been registered. We can also double check this in the log. So we also see here that it's been correctly registered. So now we have the subscription open, that any call record that actually arrives in the tenant will actually show up here. So let's place a call and just go back to client application here. So run, just opening a meeting, right, doing this through from remote system now. We're just joining this, it will connect us, it will open the call. Obviously nobody's there, so I'll add somebody from some participants here. So that here, okay, request to join. Probably getting a call at the other end now. No, we'll just try Johan. There we go. Well, I'm green. I should be coming in the call in a moment. Yes, I'm accepting the call on the other screen. It's connecting the call. All right, the call is now connected. You can also share the video, for example. Let's see. Probably it's not going to work because I got a video camera connected. So I'll close this again. And this basically, after closing this, will now create a call record. So which we need to wait until our item picks it up. While we actually wait, I will actually show you another possibility to access your call records. So let's quickly go over here into your Teams admin center. So if you go to office.com, navigate to your admin center, and each of you, all of them, of you who are on here right now, you can actually go to that. If you have the correct privileges, you could go to Teams admin center, accessing this, and it's loading right now. Picking it up, and we'll actually here on the left side have our dashboard, we have users, and we have usage reports. In the usage reports you can go down, for example, for Teams usage. So and pick the last 7 days. Should see a call record on here in a second. For that tenant name, we'll select the tenant name here. And in this tenant name, we'll actually see the channels and the details. And let me go back. So team usage and the active users. Let's pick another report actually. Let's pick the Teams user activity report. That's the right one. So here we can actually go now to meetings and calls. And we actually see the call from today here, so we can actually access this. And also here at the top, actually, this is actually our call record ID. And from here we actually see like the duration of the call, we see the participants and all the other details. And on the side we can actually then drill down to each of the participants. Let's open this one, for example. and we get a set of data that is exposed here, and in the advanced we then also see the details, but it's not the entire call record. It's only a subset of the information that is provided. So like here, like Microsoft glitch rate, connectivity information, inbound network, outbound, and others. So that's really already quite useful. Now, as we have done some additional calls, a calls record should now be ready. So let's go back to our call record collector application. All right, so we have received a call record now here, actually two. So from the subscription, we received one and another call record. I'll pick the call record here, copy to cache, and go over to our Swagger API backend. Insert it here and execute. Okay, let's double check. Move some numbers here. Let's try again. All right, we picked the call record. All right, two call records now arrived, so we can pick one of them. Let's pick the later one here, and from our call we just did, copy to our cache and go over to our API backend and run this. Okay, let's double check this. Okay, cut out the white space. All right, now it's loading. Got the correct UUID on here. All right, now the query completed successfully and received the call record on here. So I'll copy it over now to my notepad just to analyze this together. Okay. So this is the entire call record. I'm just going to format this as JSON. And we have tons of data in here. So to analyze this in more detail, we missing the time a bit. I just want to go over like what key data are in here. So basically you have network addresses from each callee that comes in and each caller, and the performance data of the device they're calling from, network information. You also go into details from the IP address. So we actually have a reflexive IP address for each caller, and the reflexive IP address actually can bring you to the location from where the call is placed. So again, I will not go through all the data. Feel free to try out an example. Switching back to the presentation now. Okay, great. We are back to the presentation. Let's quickly do a recap. So first we basically built the application on the client. We ran it after registering at the service principal, receiving a call record, and in the last steps we analyzed the call record. So the call record, we learned, has a lot of valuable information that can help us to answer a series of questions. So for example, what user called what other caller at a time? Which were the participants in a meeting? Which were their user IDs? And for each of the participants within the meeting or the call, you can get various information on the network, on the transport payload, and you can even go into details as the system battery status of the device that was placing the call. This is kind of helpful if you have support desk, for example, that receives information on low bandwidth or problematic issues with the handheld device. So can identify, and it can help to identify troubles there as well. All right, with that actually completes our demo, and let's talk about a few things I want to mention. We as NICE do provide like a commercial solution on the Azure Marketplace. So, and here on the Azure Marketplace, if you have it open, you can just type in a NICE Active 365 Monitor. It will actually bring you to our offering. You can actually go and deploy to your tenant when you have a subscription available. So, and make use of all the features that come with it. So these include like tenant and directory specific monitoring. So like of your whole directory. It's not just team specific, but it also goes into other services like SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and Teams, obviously. But it also covers like parts of Exchange, Exchange Online, and even to some extent, even Exchange on-prem and the hybrid deployment. So it will answer your questions like, how can I secure my platform? What are my service levels? Do my end users actually have good experiences with Microsoft 365 deployment? The immediate benefits you get is basically you can actually get an insight in what is actually happening in your tenant and immediately know if your clients are affected and bring down the time it takes to recover from service outages or service degradations. They might not always be on your side, it might be that they're also on the tenant side, but we have seen over our last years of experience that in many times the problem actually occurs within the network, meaning it could be an MFA authentication problem, it could be a low bandwidth on your ISP connection or your internet breakout. So these are the type of the problems you can pinpoint and troubleshoot easily. To overview the key features that I mentioned really in the summary is like really everything around active end user experience monitoring for your services. And we're doing this since 3 years now. So we have delivered the solution when it still was called Office 365 before the rename to Microsoft 365. And we come from a strong monitoring background. So we do at NICE monitoring over 20 years now. And we did not do that much in the cloud space because obviously that's all new, but since 20 years we've been doing monitoring of database applications, of messaging systems, like for example the Domino environment. And as these things go down and more things are coming into the Office or Microsoft 365 world, we could profit from the experience and make this part of our solution we offer. NICE has different locations, so one is in the United States and one is in Europe, so where we can offer support to our clients. And with the solution, we can really give you a tool at hand that saves your time during disruption and find the root cause analysis easy. And in the end, this is what counts, right? So you want to know and make aware if there are problems before they hit you and give problems to your organization. With that, I'd like to invite you to visit our website, www.nice.de. So we are a German-based company, headquartered in Germany with offices in the United States as well. And feel free to call us, to send us an email, and we're happy to give further demos or presentations to you. With that, I thank you very much for taking time to attend our session and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.